Hello, mighty comic fans. What is going on? Comic Accurate here. I am really excited to be chatting with everyone once again, and today I'm going to be doing an interesting video. So you've seen a lot of character wish lists, and I'm working on mine soon, but I think one thing we haven't seen a lot of is a map wish list for Marvel Rivals. I know that there have been some leaks for maps, but I wanted to think up some new ones that I think would be awesome to include. The way I wanted to break it down, we're focusing on three key details. First, the relevance to the characters included in the game and the lore of the overall story, additional possible gameplay mechanics, and three is the unique atmospheric appeal. Now, without further ado, let's travel through the multiverse to our first possible location, which I think would be awesome if they include in the Marvel Rivals game. The first location that I would love to see involved in this game is going nowhere. Now, not exactly nowhere, but you get my point. Jokes aside, we've been getting a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy characters being involved in this game, and while we still have yet to see Nebula, Drax, Gamora, and other famous Guardian members, I think that with the introduction of some of these characters, I'd love to see the great space station in the sky. Well, I mean, it's in a dead Celestial's head, but yeah, you know what I mean. Now, one reason I'd love to see this is not only because it would be a nice change of pace, as currently as we only have 4 maps, 2 on Asgard and 2 on Tokyo 2099, I feel like it would be pretty well built, with a lot of different levels of altitude to be dealing with, and I think that would be a great place to do a capture the point style gameplay. You could be shot by the Namor in Mantlow's bar, or take down an Iron Man that's on an elevated platform in the Collector's Emporium, and you could just take down a whole stack of different stores and buildings alike, and then be absolutely destroyed by a Flarkin Hela who one-taps you from across the map because she had the best angle and changed specifically to team up with the Loki and no one tells you. Okay, that might have been too personal. But the idea of different levels of playing fields I think would be really fun. Since we have these different altitudes, the map would also be a really cool and useful addition because it would give the game the opportunity to really flesh out the traversal mechanics that some characters have. I'm looking at Rocket and Penny, who can scale walls, which currently doesn't really come to play except in a few areas of specific maps. I bet you might have even forgotten that they can do that. I think the verticality of Nowhere would really let them use those traversal abilities more. I also think it would be awesome to include more destructibles. Who knows, maybe one of the destructibles was a generator or a battery of some sort that messes with the gravity in the game, which means that you have specific areas with no gravity and made it so you could bounce around a little bit, adding more verticality and more battles. I think a cool twist that we could see with the whole time stream entanglement and lore idea is if around Nowhere, the space station, in the distance, various Doombots are fighting or trying to break their way into the station, as it would be really cool to have an ongoing battle in space while our characters are fighting for the fate of the multiverse. Also, finally, if they added Nowhere, Cosmo, the Soviet telepathic space dog and also the head of security on Nowhere, would have to be added, and who wouldn't want to see more of a good doggo? Literally one of my favorite characters ever. Also, vote for Cosmo for re-election in 2099. Now, firing up the engines and giving our good friend Nick Fury a call, I think one map that I'd love to see included in the game is the SHIELD helicarrier. Now, the helicarrier is normally the base of operations for SHIELD, and likes to move around a lot, not generally staying in one location for long periods of time, but there are currently multiple characters within Marvel Rivals that in mainstream comics and in the MCU movies have been included in part of SHIELD, so I'm curious to see if SHIELD is a part of this game, as it currently hasn't been mentioned as far as I'm aware in any of the lore or story of the characters. Now, since we don't have any direct information in the story on if SHIELD is working or considered to be an organization still, it would be really cool to see maybe a version of this controlled by a villain, and shown as almost a villain's lair. My idea would be that Ultron or maybe Arnim Zola would essentially take control of this helicarrier base. It would be probably the closest thing to a horror map where you'd have random mechanical whirring, broken down robots behind blast doors knocking on them, maybe lingering robotic laughs and the engine of the helicarrier failing to start. It would be really cool if we had a few robots being taken over by both of the two parties and seeing the internal conflict, or simply them just banging their heads against the wall tired of everything. I'd love to see maybe both Ultron and Zola fighting for control of the map. Maybe the winning side lets one take over and the losing side lets the enemy hold the power. I'd honestly love to see maybe the lights flicker specific colors, for example a red hue for Ultron or a green hue for Zola. I think for this map I'd love to see it as more of a continuous push kind of map, from one end of the helicarrier to the other, or maybe to push to the central computer that affects the entire helicarrier. I think it would be really cool to have the Destructibles feature a bit more prominently in this map. We'd have a lot of broken electronics to play with and make cool explosions from, rather than the current Destructibles feature just being kind of walls and roofs and such. And I think it would add that extra layer of super ability battles and make you feel a little bit more immersed when you're playing your character. Now, I think the cool twist for the lore of this map is that we could potentially see having Ultron be more of an anti-hero if he gets introduced into the game. It's this what if Ultron's conquest was paused by one of the Doctor Dooms, and since this time stream entanglement, maybe he decided to put away his fight with humanity in general and decided to specifically set up against the Doctor Dooms. He assessed the need for peace of all timelines rather than just that of one. Almost like a reprogram of some sort, and we see maybe some cool qualities come out for this character. Now let's descend from the helicarrier and move over to the last map that I'd like to be added to the game, which is more of a general map idea that could be broken down into its own set of 2 or more maps, that being New York City. Now, yes, I know what you're probably thinking, this is a large map. Insomniac made a whole game dedicated to Spider-Man in New York, and to that I say, just think about this. New York is open enough to be split into these subsection maps. So we have Tokyo 2099 with 2 maps, Asgard with 2 maps. I think that the New York theme could have 2 or maybe even 3 maps. It's no secret that we have a multitude of superheroes who live and fight in New York City, just to name a few. We got Daredevil, Punisher, Doctor Strange. I didn't forget Spider-Man. Now, while we have connections in the lore to a Nueva York 2099, which I think would be a really cool map to implement, we could see a future version of New York, but I know that it's a really big ask. I'd love to see different subsections of New York in different styles, or at very least chock full of Easter eggs. Like, how cool would it be to have an Into the Spider-Verse like theme to this Nueva New York? Imagine not only being able to get a futuristic New York, but we'd have one alleyway or section that looks like it's from Spider-Man Noir's timeline, but with the added fun of having a Peter parked car. Now, we don't have to keep it to just Easter eggs from Spider-Man's story as well. I'd love to see a mock Baxter building, or maybe a Nelson and Murdoch office. I just think there's a lot of potential to see a lot of these cool Easter eggs included on the map, which leads me to the next point of additional gameplay mechanics. Now, one of the coolest forms of gameplay mechanics that we've seen differ from other games is that of the team-up mechanic. Now, what if we were also to see sections of the map that could change specific characters' effects or appearances? Now, I'm not talking completely earth-shattering effects like Iron Man changing his suit and being able to call down an Iron Legion on the map. But what if we have something cool in the workshop of the Avengers Tower where you press a button and it changes the visual effects for his repulsor beam, or letting Spider-Man have a funny quip when swinging through or around the Daily Bugle? I'd love to see something that symbolizes that this is their home turf, and to kind of see them in their natural element. Finally, the last point is this atmospheric appeal, and let's say that the Avengers Tower is included in the game. Rather than the heroes starting with one common area, what if they all get started in respective Avengers rooms, or camping out in one if they aren't an Avenger? Iron Man in his, Spider-Man in his. I think it would look similar to the Overwatch Busan map, at least for the spawn point. Now, I believe that since it's such a large area, they have so much potential to include different aspects of the Marvel characters, including specific voice lines. Like, for example, could you imagine Doctor Strange hearing a voice line from Wong or the Ancient One? How about hearing Jarvis or Friday talking to Iron Man? Or maybe even having Spider-Man get a voicemail from Aunt May or MJ? I think although New York or Nueva York is classified as just a city, there's so much potential for all the characters that it's just too good to pass up. Now, I am curious, what is your opinions on the 3 maps I suggested? I also wanted to do a thank you for watching my channel, and I hope you like and subscribe. If you subscribe, you save all the multiverse versions of yourselves from Doom. Okay, maybe not, but it would help support the channel a lot. And I got one final question for y'all. Do you have a specific map that you'd like to be added to the game? Let me know in the comments below. Once again, with your comic content, this is Comic Accurate. See you next time.